welcome to good afternoon, everybody. It's going to be me showing an endgame solution to this freaking problem. As you see, took off freaking took this FE this is physical disposition and found an endgame solution, which was clearly winning, which Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura was freaking perplexed and complicated. So I'm going to go by my move analysis and show you it. Let us get started. And also give him credit where credit is due. Shout out for him to give me this idea. And it's a king and closed pawns endgame against a minor piece and a rook. So playing against Dr. Elite, 10 minutes on the clock, up a rook. And now I start an endgame with it, right? Well, I has the rook and what's it called? I have 2 pawns. And 2 pawns, a knight, and what's it called? 2 pawns, so close to as I said, knight, king, and the rook is on the freaking 5th rank, a5. So immediately for these first 10, say 1 to 13 moves, I immediately maneuver for pressure. As you're going to see as I explain move by move. The first move is going to be immediately rook to g5. Immediately simply putting pressure on the black king, and simply targeting the knight, putting pressure on the knight. And also targeting to square h5, because the whole point of the objective is to get to h5 eventually. This will be scanning the type of endgame and how many squares and controls I have. And move 4, you're going to see me go to king to f2. It begins the journey, supports the attack, and restricts black knight, then simply just chases it down and pushes it away. The king is getting active. You're going to see on move 11 that and rook to h8. As you're going to see, I'm repositioning the rook to create more dangerous threats on the king side where 2 of the closed pawn structures are. And on the 12th move, a critical move that anchors the rook and keeps the black knight tied to the defense of the h pawn. So as you're going to see, I immediately go rook to g5 to simply and coordinate all my pieces together. The pawns are working together, the king's working together, and I'm calculating the idea from the start. Because I go here, I know that if I go into this go to freaking f2, the knight can check me and get a fork, so I always have to be very mindful of that. We're being very careful of that. So I simply separate my rook, as you see, to freaking a5. The king almost slides over. Probably a waiting move, not too sure. Now the fork is not available anymore, so I slowly, escort my king up. I realize I made a mistake and get punished for it. He checks me, protects both those squares, and knight repositions itself onto f6. I simply check the king, do a skewer-like tactic. The king is going to move diagonally up or diagonally down to defend the knight, which it does diagonally down. And even me, I know that I want to either get my king up here and trade off the knight and the rook so my king can have direct opposition. However, I do not have that opportunity yet, so I'm simply waiting to gain that chance as moving my king. Thinking about rotating my rook up and over, taking sort of a rook lift right here. As you see, I'm planning out the idea in my head of what options of what I'm going to do. So I immediately go 2. And you're going to see in move 15 is going to be the first capture. We are currently on move 8. Now it's about to be move 9. Immediately putting more pressure on the knight in the f-file. The knight moves out the way, targeting my pawn, my freaking G pawn. Just doing the same exact thing, checking the king, getting the king to move away farther from the freaking pawn, from the freaking pawns on the G and H pawn. So I check, move out the way, and now put a position where where the knight is still is getting more pressure on the pawn, and I'm gonna slowly try to erode my way into the position and get my rook onto the freaking on g5, I believe it is. King moves out the way. I try to gain the light square opposition. Why? Because the knight is only allowed to move onto a light square because it's on a dark square, so I can avoid check. Now I can tell that I'm almost getting into a position of zigzag. This is move, I believe, 13. So I'll go to e2. trying to gain more opposition. Now I take the pawn with check because everything's defended, and the knight cannot capture the pawn on the G pawn, so the king moves out the way. Now I simply, what's it called? I simply say, hey, if you want to trade off pawns, if you want to take my knight, I'm gonna take. If you want to take my rook, I'm gonna take your knight, and I'm gonna get opposition. So that's why the king doesn't take that. So I simply put more pressure on the knight on the C file, and I'm covering my squares. Checks me, and I just simply go to the E2 to punish the knight and force the tempo on the knight to move. And also I have diagonal opposition onto the freaking G pawn. The rook is blocking the king from supporting and getting any sort of action in the game. I check the king onto to G4 was the first capture on move 15. Now I have an outside pass far on the H file. Now you can see on move 20 is clearing the king side, move 16 to 20. After capturing the H pawn, I pivot to take the G4 pawn, and the black king is now entirely cleared, leaving just simply me with a massive material advantage. I use simplification, moves 21 to 22. I wisely change the rook for black's last attempted piece, as you're going to see soon. With no pieces left for black, I'm guaranteed to win and just to push my pawns. Now, move 24 to 31. And move 28, G5, 21, and G8 equals rook. I march obviously the G pawn down the board, and I work together by trading off the last piece. And now just have a rook and pawn versus king endgame, which is absolutely winning. And the maiden that's going to be 32 to 42. Move 32 is going to be rook G5 check, and then move 40 is going to be rook A6. The 32 rook A8 checkmate, ladder mate technique to trap the black king on the edge of the board to the final checkmate. Now this is how we solve an impossible, and I cracked the Mittens 2800 plus chess endgame engine. With, as you can see at the end of the video, 98% accuracy, 670 pawn loss, no mistakes, no inaccuracies. So, to describe this now, it's just simply me and the king, and just simply promoting the pawn because the king defends the rook, and the king can never stop this pawn, so I'm just simply walking up the board, built my little bridge, and my blocking wall. Now, I don't even promote to a queen because I just rather checkmate a rook to practice my endgame technique. And you're going to just see a slow squeeze of a ladder mate. And this is Stockfish level 8, by the way. So, now, let's say this is the end of the video. Even sometimes the best in the world gets stuck or perplexed. In this video, I take on, as I take a position from the Mittens AI, an endgame position that Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura had some serious perplexion with. I used the backwards method and high-fidelity calculation. It demonstrated systematic dismantling of black's kingside pawns, trapping the knight, and forcing a promotion. To go through, you're going to see the deep tree calculation strategy, the pawn stealing, liquidating the knight, and the final ladder mate. If you enjoyed this type of content, high-fidelity chess analysts to see approaches to 2,800 plus ELO, puzzle solving, or just endgame technique and compilations, subscribe, like, comment, share. And shout out to him for giving me this video idea. Thank you. Out. Enjoy the rest of the video and the music.